Friday, January the 18th, 2019, and I'm returned to walking. Belated Happy New Year to everybody. I had a muscle tear, put me out of action for 6 weeks, but fingers crossed, should be back in gear today. Let's see. I've chosen a short walk of 8 miles on the North Downs from here to Otford. Familiar territory. Walked around here quite a lot on my videos in the past, but I haven't done this walk before. So like I say, it's a short one, get me back into it and build up from here hopefully. Had a bit of a problem getting down here as usual. Nothing changes. 2019 marks a decade of recording for me, so I've been moaning about the railways in the whole of that time. First bit of cold weather we get today, and the points are all over the place, as is the service. Looks like there's a lot of development going on next to this station. Anyway, it's about 12:15, having eventually got here. What turns out to be a pretty decent day actually. It wasn't forecast, meant to be grey today, but the sun's actually out. Perfect walking temperature of about 6 or 7 degrees, but that will drop as I progress round. Anticipating about 3.5 hours to do this walk, so let's press on as a train pulls in. Well, apparently this is the track that I turn up left, but still not signposted, so that should be, if it is official, reported on Pathwatch, which I'll do. Having crossed over a dual carriageway, come out now on the edge of a golf course. Evidence here of ice, indicating how cold it was last night. Then come down to another road. Up by the roundabout, we then take a footpath for Well Hill. Still pretty noisy and busy round here. Okay, getting over this stile, then got some horses to contend with. Then across another stile into another horse field, and I've just seen a little fox beyond that pile of wood over there. But this is the hidden stile beyond the third field. You can still hear the hum of traffic. Turning right up this lane now. So in the dip, leave the lane at this point. Up this bridleway, which I believe is Woodland Trust property, looking at the symbols there. As usual, the horses make sections of this path quite difficult, contrary to what the text says. Yeah, I wonder if I've come the right way. Looks like there's a bench down there. Nothing here though, where I'm stood. I've done about 300 metres. Yeah, point 12 of the text refers to this sharp descent, so I am on track. Now descending uphill again just after the T-junction through this coppice sweet chestnut plantation. More bird sound now, as you'd imagine, as we approach the courtship period soon. Won't be far into the future when the old chiff chaff arrives, thanks to global warming. There's a bench and an ugly pylon next to it, associated brain activity coming from that as well. Negative brain activity. Bit of a view back. If your idea of a view incorporates pylons and the M25. Mine certainly doesn't. Now, let's see if this is ignored or otherwise. Onward journey over there. Nice dedication to on the bench. Tad early for lunch. I'm aiming for Shoreham Church, about 3 miles hence. The view on the other side of the pylon run, away from the M25, marginally better. Then you pass a trig point. I'm not quite sure how high up we are here because I can't tell from the map I've got. Could look on my phone, I suppose. And then very close by, mobile phone mast. On the 160 metre contour, I believe. Ending alongside the M25, which we're about to cross shortly. Here we go. Well, that's not actually the M25, sorry. That's a dual carriageway leading up to Orpington, I think, which feeds onto it. Very pleasant woodland section of walking here, albeit the traffic noise spoils it a little bit. Mixed woodland, traditional English trees on the whole as well. Okay, that woodland was known as Hollow's Wood, as you can see there, and it was Woodland Trust. No horses or bikes, good to see. In a left, downhill, to pass through a tunnel under the M25. Here we go. Out the other side. Okay, having come out the other side of the tunnel, it's now a slow descent for 800 metres along this country lane to meet another road at the bottom there. There's been lots of decimation down this lane, similar to the railway embankments up in Hertfordshire that I mentioned last video. They haven't even left any log piles. It's outrageous. They are serious wildlife corridors, railway lines, and I don't know if the guys at Network Rail realise that. Sure they do, they just don't care. So in Hertfordshire at least, where they've chopped down all the trees and left the embankments pretty much like this, wildlife has had to seek a new home, and of course it breaks the corridor for them to move on to other places. And that's why, as Chris Packham agrees with me, I see, you now have to go to reserves or national parks to see any wildlife, because in the bog standard English countryside there's very little, and what you will see is predictable. A handful, maybe 10 regular species. It's not very often you see a rarity now. Well, I suppose that doesn't make sense, because by default, if you do see it, it will be a rarity. But yeah, good to see Chris Packham in his BioBlitz campaign. Check that one out on Google. Very well worth supporting. But he mentions the same problems. You should step out of your door into wildlife. not have to go and seek it. I mean, that is the state of play in the UK at the moment. Not like when I was a child, which isn't that many years ago, I can tell you. The vista just prior to entering Meanfield Wood. Not bad. Just make out the sign there. 23 of the text. Go straight across here at this T-junction, or crossroads actually. Winter always gives you a different perspective on the countryside. Text refers to bluebells in season. Clearly a distant memory here at the moment, or a forthcoming one, whichever way your glass is filled. I guess it's a forthcoming one because we're nearer on a fairly steep descent. Chaffinch in the background. Passing an interestingly positioned picnic table there on the right. I guess it might have had a view once upon a time because these tree saplings look quite young. Information panel here on my left. Most of which has been destroyed. Now I remember walking along this path, both in the direction I'm pointing to and beyond, on another Shoreham walk, because I remember this Meanfield Wood sign there. So well done the author of this walk for devising a different walk. We come out with a decent vista over Shoreham, and there's my destination, the church. The wind's picking up, I notice. You might be able to hear it now on the commentary, unfortunately. Quite a chill wind as well. To see, got a new wood being planted here. Commemorate the war. Wonderful. So coming out onto the road, lunchtime pubs are up that way left. We're stood here next to the museum tea room, which is open Saturdays and Sundays 9 to 4:30. Presumably walking down Church Street here will bring me to the church. Well done, Watson. King's Arms here, which I noticed isn't mentioned in the lunchtime stop suggestions. I tend not to film the pubs so much these days that are off the beaten track or off the main route, because Google Street View has certainly enabled people to look at these from the outside anyway. So there's little point me going out my way. Old post office there, which I noticed still has the collection box in it, so they haven't got far to go to deliver their Christmas cards. Over to Darrenth again with its memorial, which we filmed in the past. Passing the Mount Vineyard again. So lunch will shortly be served. I notice the extension fund still hasn't been reached. It's been going for a few years now, I think. So up the U tunnel. So here's a little bit of information about what the funds are going to provide. I'm noticing this quite increasingly now. Toilets being inserted in churches. Not sure what I feel about that on the sacred land. Sign of the times, I guess, but you know, what will be next? So about 1:30, here we are, just in time for lunch, which has been a previous lunchtime stop, maybe twice previously. Well, there we go, mid-January, my first cluster of snowdrops. Wonderful. Seasons are on track. Good to know, eh? Just as we're about to get another mini beast of the east, I hear. Almost 2:30, lunch has been had, and I was reading an interesting article the other day about people being buried in churches, and apparently the people that were buried near the door, like this reverend, were not very rich. Richer you were, the better position you could afford to have in the church, which confirms what we've seen on these videos over the years. So this poor Robert Price was obviously a pauper, but lucky enough to be buried in the dry, albeit that hundreds of feet or thousands of feet would have walked over him in the interim. Wonderful entrance arch here. Look at that wood. Amazing. Grade 1 building this. I'm not going in it today because there's somebody else in there. I can hear them cleaning up or doing something of that kind. I think I've been in here before anyway. So that was St Peter and St Paul, Shoreham, undergoing works at the moment. Interesting local signage. Do with a few of them up my way. Okay, having crossed the busy road just beyond Shoreham station, we're now following this bridleway. Okay, at this juncture we leave the bridleway and take the path that I walked not so long ago in the reverse direction. That would have been last summer, I think, when I did a walk down this way. Yeah, I remember coming down this staircase, so now I've got to get up it. Straight on here, following the Fox and Hounds discs. I think I remember that that pub's now shut. Soon find out. Yep, past the old cattle again. All tucked up for winter. Just see the turrets of Dartford Crossing over there. Okay, we veer off the grassy track here into woodland. Point 37 of the text. Sun's getting low, temperatures dropping, wind chills rising. old man's beard's still hanging around. Incidentally, I forgot to mention that there was a wintering cherry in the churchyard of St Peter's and St Paul's. Quite amazing, blossom at this time of year. I forgot to film it. Wonderful views on my left down the valley, which I wouldn't have been able to see in the summer, which is when I think I did this walk, August. Views down the valley with the Dartford crossing just in the distance. So this is a northward view, or thereabouts, probably northwest from where I am. Just got some jet noise encroaching now. Don't know if that's City Airport. Anyway, apart from that, absolutely dead quiet here. Perfect. Interesting. That's a new sign to me. Downs Watch BRIs. countryeye.co.uk. Good idea. Now a little map indicating where we're at. Soon be at Magpie Bottom, I know that much. Looking back from whence I've just walked, I'm at Magpie Bottom now. Lovely. Interesting coloured sheep there. Never seen that colouring before. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lovely vista. Looking back from whence I've just come. Magpie Bottom. Conservation area, I do believe. Again, one of those areas that Chris Packham refers to, where you have to seek out wildlife. Shouldn't have to. One final view back before we leave. Yeah, lovely. Highlight of the day, no doubt. There's a stile mentioned in point 38, but the field gate's open anyway. Looks pretty much permanent, judging by that lock, padlock. Could be just a winter thing though, while the cattle are sorry. Descending down into further woodland, I think. Now entering Great Wood. Another lovely mixed woodland. 4:15. Now walking down Shore Hill Lane. About 45 minutes of light left. Okay, there is an option to turn right here, follow the North Downs way straight into Otford, but the recommended route is more scenic apparently, just by this house here. Strong smell of gas here, so let's take the more scenic route. This is our onward journey, following the entrance to Oak Hall. And now following the North Downs way. Some pretty decent views on my left already, and also the hum of the M25 coming into play again, unfortunately. Wonderful views now, looking over Otford. Yeah, I can hear, I think it's a buzzard mewing. Pretty good views. Point 62 of the text. Take the right branch here into the woodland. So that was Kemsing Down we've just left. Very pleasant it was as well. Kent Council really is poor at maintaining gates, signs and general access really. I've noticed that and said that before. But look at those signs. Absolutely hopeless. Illegible. There's the old trig point again on the other side of the field. Can't recall how high that is, but passed it before. We're now on the North Downs Way again, about a mile to Otford. 4:20, twilight views of Otford and its surrounds. Wonderful, albeit the jet noise is a bit louder now. Lovely reds on this, what do you call this wood? Winter, can't remember what it's called, but it's lovely, isn't it? Lights up the hillside in the winter. Wonderful plant, shrub. Well, that's good timing. 16:29, 3.5 hours later as forecast. Train's just pulling in. Very pleasant walk to get reintroduced. See you next time. No need to say any more, I haven't got time.